what is it that you hope to leave in them that will help them throughout 2025? The one thing.
I want to take them on a journey of how they can get unlocked mentally from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. And they might have a fixed mindset in some areas, like you said, blind spots. And if they can get unleashed in those areas, 2025 promises to be the best year ever.
Man, that's so good.
But if they don't, 2025 promises to be the same replay as 2024.
Man.
At the same replay as 2023.
Like Groundhog Day.
That's right. And so I want to encourage people to be here, because I know some of the speakers that you have lined up. Listen, they need to be here.
Chris, you're going to be sharing out of your book, Quantum Leap, today.
Yes.
One of the principles that you've identified as one of the main points in your book when it comes to the difference between a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset.
That's right.
So define with us, so we speak the same language, we know what you mean by fixed versus growth mindset. Define those terms, man.
Yeah, I think a fixed mindset is when you feel like there's no options. Like you feel like that nothing has changed, nothing is changeable, so it's unchanging. And then a growth mindset would be, things can change. Things can be changed and things can grow. And I think it's so crucial because it affects every area of your life. So not only does it affect your mindset, not only does it affect your business, but it affects your relationships. It affects your performance at work.
Man.
It affects the way you believe about yourself, etc.
Man, it sounds like a big deal.
Yeah, it is a big deal. And I don't think that we pay attention to what our mind is, what we're telling ourselves in our mind.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, how can we know, like, give us some instruction, like, how do we know, how can we look at our lives and reflect and say, man, I'm kind of operating from a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. How can we know which mindset we're operating in or how we're thinking?
That's a great question, Chris. I would say, first of all, ask yourself, like, do you approach life with curiosity? Like, I'm just curious, or do you just think you've kind of got it figured out?
Okay.
And I think a lot of people, you and I run into people all the time, like people have it already figured out. So they're not asking questions. So do you approach life from a curiosity? Do you ask questions? Do you even think, in the words of David Higginbotham, our dear friend, do you even think that your point of view could be wrong even just a little bit?
Man, oh my gosh, I might be wrong.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I might be wrong.
Yeah.
And so I think the way you notice a fixed mindset is you're not approaching it from curiosity. You're not asking questions. You kind of, in your mind, you already got it figured out. And I think once you start down that road, I don't need help. I don't need counseling. I don't need coaching. I don't need this. I'll just figure it out. I'm going to muscle through it. Then it just, I don't think anybody decides they're going to have a fixed mindset. I think this sounds weird. I think they grow into a fixed mindset. So that it grows into them and it starts developing over time.
Yeah. I'm thinking about kids. You and I both have children.
Absolutely.
Grown children at this point. Right. And yet when they were kids, like, there's a natural curiosity. I think about my son, for example. He wants to go outside and explore and make things. So as I'm thinking about this with you here, I'm thinking about, man, it seems like since we're made in God's image, that we're creative in nature and curious in nature to discover and explore. So it's like, I wonder at what point, it's not like we need to become curious. It's like, how did I become not curious? At what point in my life did that change? That's interesting to think about.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting that you would say that it comes, talking about when we're younger, because I think sometimes when we're younger, we go from being curious to, like, you've heard of the know-it-all, like they know everything or they've got it all figured out. And I think it can happen through pride. I think you start having some successes in life. You're early on, you're winning the spelling bee, you're winning this, you're winning that. Everything you put your hand to touches, it turns to gold, if you will. And then you become so self-assured of yourself that you really don't need any help.
I see.
And I think that becomes a dangerous place. Now, I don't think that that's the only way that somebody develops a fixed mindset, but that could be one of the ways.
That reminds me of ego, EGO, eliminating God and others.
Yep.
That if I'm operating from a place of ego, I tend to push away not only God, but other people relationally.
Yeah.
Because I'm not open. I think I'm right. I'm closed off and I'm opinionated.
And we close off their opinions and their thoughts. And I think about how much that I've grown in my friendship with you over the years, and I'm thinking, man, if I would have had a fixed mindset,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't even be here. I wouldn't have written a book on mindset.
Good call.
I wouldn't be here talking to you
Yeah.
because it just eliminates fixed mindsets eliminate so many good things out of our lives. I
Mm-hmm.
think if the reason why I love talking about mindset is because I think if you can learn to get that mindset that you need that can move you from being fixed to a growth mindset. Oh, now we're talking.
Right. It's game
Imagine
on.
what's inside of you. So imagine what was inside of you. What is inside of you and the great things that you've been doing in 2024 and beyond. And your word this year has been bold.
Right.
You've done some pretty bold things, and I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
Imagine this. Were they inside of you 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
But yet, how did they come out of you? Well, I've seen it come out of you through a growth mindset because you kept learning about yourself. You kept studying. You kept taking courses and paying for coaching. And I'm like, there is no stopping somebody that is willing to be curious and learning. What can I learn? And that's why I always tell people, the older I get, I always want to be a learner.
That's so good.
And be teachable.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it's one of the things in Scripture when the Bible talks about the qualification of an elder. It says apt to teach, and I don't think it's just talking about that they need to be a good teacher, because you might have some elders in the church that are not teachers, but I think it means teachable. Are they teachable? So
that's good, man. Yeah. Because I think culture says that, man, as somebody increases in age throughout life, they get set in their ways. The likelihood of them changing becomes slimmer the more they increase in age. By the way, increasing in age, that's me saying getting older.
That's right.
I'm trying to change my language around that.
I know what you're saying.
See, I'm trying to dodge that.
Too. Here's the deal. You've heard the saying. You can't teach a dog what?
Oh, no, old dog, new
You can't
tricks.
teach an old dog new tricks.
Increasing in age dog, new tricks.
And so what we've told ourselves has actually become true for a lot of people, that they tell themselves what they're saying is, the older I get, I can't learn new things.
Yeah.
So I get new technology, I can't learn it. That's absolutely not true. Yet that is the difference between a fixed mindset versus somebody has a growth mindset, says, hey, give me that piece of technology. Would you teach me? Would you help me? Because I want to learn.
Yeah.
And if you say, I want to learn, it's game on.
Man, you're unstoppable at that point.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because things are changeable.
Right.
Your mindset's changeable.
Yeah.
Your environment's changeable. Your relationships are changeable. They're not fixed.
So give us some of those gold nuggets out of your book, Chris. Give us the meat and potatoes, man.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you, I go to the first one, which is something that I had to live through counseling and everything, is the difference between limiting beliefs and unlimiting beliefs. Like, I lived for so long with limiting beliefs, man. Like, I had these beliefs, like, I remember at age 38, I believed that and I know you can identify with this now, like, you're 41, right?
Right.
And I believed at 38 that my best days were behind me.
Yeah.
I had a fixed mindset around that. Today at 52, I believe that my best days are ahead of me and that I haven't even begun to accomplish all that God wants me to accomplish.
Wow.
And I believe that about you too. And I believe that about every single person that's watching and that'll hear this. If they develop a growth mindset where they start growing in what they believe and how they look at the world and how they look at themselves. Because the way I look at myself today is different, much different than how I looked at myself 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And you've got a conference coming up I'm excited about sharing at Elevate. And I wanted to just share one thing that I'm going to talk about there, that, I don't believe that the right doors will open for you until you allow until the version of yourself, until you develop the version of yourself that is supposed to walk through those doors. In other words, you've got to allow your identity to develop, and you've got to allow who you are to develop. Look at who you are today and look at the doors you're walking through.
Man.
You couldn't have walked through those 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because you weren't the person that you needed to be to walk through those doors.
Man, that's so good.
And that's what I'm going to be talking about at this conference, is at Elevate 2025. And I think it's applicable for business people. It's applicable for stay-at-home moms. It's applicable for stay-at-home dads or whoever. If you've got a heartbeat, I even think teenagers need to hear this. I think we ought to teach this in the school system about mindset, because where do most students fail? It's in their mindset. They start believing what all of their friends are saying about them.
Right.
Or the failures that they're having. They think, and then one of the things I share in my book is that failure is not a person, it's an event. That means you can keep failing over and over and over and still not be a failure.
Man, that's
In fact,
powerful.
if you study every successful person, you've been able to meet John Maxwell several times, and you ask him about his failures, he's had a lot of failures.
Oh, he wrote a whole book about it.
Yeah. But you know why? Because he's tried more things.
Yeah.
The people that have more failures have just tried more things.
Yeah.
It's like you fail, 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 succeed. Fail,
Right.
fail, succeed. Fail, 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 succeed. And so I think it just takes developing that mindset. So that limited mindset versus an unlimited mindset. And I had to go through counseling for this, man, and it was painful because I didn't grow up with a father, and neither did you. And I could have become a victim.
Sure.
I could have been a victim, like, woe is me, or I could say, you know what, I'm going to be a victor, and I'm going to take those limiting beliefs and get rid of them. And I don't believe as a child of God that I can fully live as a child of God, free in the Lord and what He's done for me, if I have limiting beliefs.
Wow.
I believe those limiting beliefs need to be like crucified. You got to get rid of them. Haven't you dealt with limiting beliefs?
Oh,
before?
100%. I mean, on the daily.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember thinking, you and I have some history together going
That's
around
right.
doing loops around Longview Lake
Yep.
and on our bikes, right? Those long Saturday mornings
yeah.
training for, what was it? Not Des Moines. We did,
No, we were
not
Memphis.
Chattanooga, Memphis. That's it.
Yeah.
Tennessee. We did the 70.3 race, the
That's right.
Ironman here a year or two ago. And the reason that I'm sharing about Longview Lake is because I remember back in 2008 or 9, like, man, I just got to a spot where I just felt so unhealthy, and I decided to make some changes with my health and fitness. And I remember like peak performance was about 2009, and I ran one lap. I ran 8 miles around Longview Lake. And then that was great. However, it only lasted a year or two. Then I went back to my original habits and back to my regular eating and all of that. And so it was very short-lived. And I remember all of the years from about 2010 all the way up until 2021 or so almost a decade, anytime I'd go by Longview Lake, hear Longview Lake or anything about Longview Lake, I would go back to the old days in my 20s when I was like fit and ready to go. And so one of the limiting beliefs I had that you touched on a few minutes ago is like my best days when it came to my health and fitness was behind me because I was in my prime in my 20s. And so it's pretty neat thinking about what I've done around Longview Lake now. It was just, when was it? Maybe a few months ago was one of the summer months. I ran around Longview Lake, which is about a 10 mile loop. I mean, just because, well, number one, it was time to do a run. But I just remember thinking, man, I'm so thankful that I chose to give up that belief that was holding me back, that a decade ago was peak fitness, because where would I be as a 41-year-old man if I chose to hang on to that belief? I wouldn't have been running around Longview Lake.
And think about this, Chris. So think about how that belief seeped into your marriage, seeped into your parenting.
Right.
Because once you start feeling defeated in one area of life, you start feeling defeated in all
It shows up in
areas.
other areas 100%.
It does.
Yeah, very true.
It does.
Yeah. So how can we be intentional? Because you and I just left a conversation.
Yes, we did.
From downtown.
Yep.
And yet it's always so, it's, at least for me, it's easier to see the challenge and opportunity in someone else's life. Like, man, if they would just change A, B, they could get to C. And yet sometimes it's always easier to see it in someone else's life than in my own.
Absolutely.
And yet we are where we're at, and most of us desire more, are better. So there's this gap from where we are now versus where I desire to be in the future. So when I think about limiting versus unlimiting beliefs, it could unlock the very thing that's holding me back from who I desire to be, so I can get what I say I want and become the type of person I need to be in order to make all that happen. So like, what are some of the steps that one can take if they identify as like, man, I am stuck. I have been living in a limited way. Sometimes that looks like, man, I could see where that's showing up, that addiction or that struggle or stronghold or habit. that habit's shown up in my life, and I can see where it's like, oh, that's on my grandpa's side or my mom's side, and it goes back generations, and so it's just destined for me. So how can we break from the limiting belief that's holding us back? Like, is there some tactical
Yes.
steps we can
Yeah.
take, man?
I really believe the very first thing you do is take a piece of paper,
Yeah.
blank piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, put on one side limiting beliefs, and then put on the other side what God believes about me. Now, I realize that not everybody listening is a Christ follower. They're a Christian, but just play along with me here.
Yeah.
So then what you do is start on the left-hand side. You're going to list everything, and it's going to be painful, and it's going to take a while. You're going to list everything that you believe about yourself.
Okay.
I'm a failure. I don't do relationships well. Every time I try to work out, I get winded, and I'll never be able to get in shape. Just write down everything, every negative thing that you believe about yourself. Then here's what you do. Go over to the other side, and on each one, start writing the truth of what God says about you. Now, this is cool because if you have listeners or viewers that don't know who God is, go to the Bible and start researching the Bible about what the Bible says about who you are.
Yeah.
And it will begin to change your life. The other thing I would say is I don't think that you can escape this without getting into some counseling or coaching, but I think some good counseling, because you've got to look back in your childhood, and many of us have some brokenness in our lives that has brought us to those beliefs.
Right.
Things that were said either consciously or subconsciously by our parents, a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a junior high kid. I remember a junior high kid said something to me when I was in junior high, and it affected me into my childhood. I mean, into my adulthood.
Sure.
But it was from my childhood.
Yeah.
And I had to get rid of that. That became a limiting belief that I adopted because that's what they said about me. So I believe that is the first step, is that write down all the limiting beliefs, and then write down on the right-hand column, what does God say about me? What is true about me?
That's good.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because if you're going to replace a lie, you have to replace it with the truth, okay, to get it out of your mind.
Going from identity to identity.
Yep. Ooh, I like that.
That's a series right
That's
there.
good. I'm going to have to write that down. I'm glad we're recording this. And then the other thing I would do is jump into some counseling, like just getting with a therapist. Like, I've got a great counselor, and just working with him regularly. Somebody that knows you, somebody that will speak truth into you, somebody that you can, we talked about this earlier today, not live in isolation. I think the reason why a lot of people struggle is because we live in isolation. We isolate ourselves, and it's so easy to do with all of the scrolling on the phones and everything, and just staying to ourselves instead of getting with other people. You and I have spent all day today evaluating 2024 for our lives personally, and for our business and our marriages and our parenting, and then writing goals for 2025.
Yeah.
And we're with other men that can speak into that. A lot of people don't have that.
Man, that's huge.
So I think, making a list of everything that is your limiting belief, and then what is the going from the lie to the truth. Okay. And I love that lie identity to identity. Okay. And then getting into some good counseling. Okay. And then I just think you've got to begin to speak truth. So the other thing I would say is write some affirmations about each truth. So you replace the lie with the truth. Then write some affirmations. So one of my affirmations was, I am a great leader that loves developing people.
Man.
Because there was a point in my life where I felt like I wasn't that good of a leader.
Yeah.
Now, my counselor also helped me, said, there might have been points where you weren't a good leader.
Right.
At that point, you might not have been being a good leader, but that isn't like forever.
Yeah.
It's not fixed. It was just, you weren't a good leader in that moment.
In that moment, right. Yeah. It's not coming from your identity necessarily.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And what would a growth mindset say? Okay, I need to
could
grow.
change.
I need to grow in this area, and I need to move forward. And so making some declarations that you start reading every day. Now this will, it's crazy how you can rewire your brain. You can actually rewire your brain by writing declarations about yourself and just start reading them every day.
Wow.
And you will start living out what you believe about yourself in your mind. So like I talked to somebody the other day. I'm talking to people all the time about their jobs, and I was asking somebody about their job, and
Yeah.
like, hey, are you going to advance? And I just would never want to do that or whatever. So basically, what they're saying is they're going to stay at the bottom of the totem pole in their field,
Mm-hmm.
in their profession,
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of their
No
life.
growth.
No growth.
Yeah. That's tough.
That's tough.
Well, there's no standing still in life.
Yeah.
The world moves so fast. I believe that we're either getting better or we're getting worse.
Yeah, you cannot just stay stagnant.
No. Everything's
stay- yeah.
changing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, one of the things I appreciate about you, Chris, and this has came up 2 or 3 times in our conversation so far today here, is that you mentioned a counselor. The reason that's important to me, man, is because no one succeeds alone. Sometimes
That's
I
right.
see these video titles and I just cringe where it talks about being self-made. And I was in a conversation with another gentleman who brought this up a few months ago or so about this idea of being self-made. It's like, I think at the end of the day, you and I both have studied. We're readers. We like to learn.
Yep.
We're learning based,
Absolutely.
learning for the sake of doing, not just for more information. So we both have studied great people. The common denominator is there's always somebody that's shown the way. It's
That's
not
right.
like they're self-made and they figured out all by themselves, because no one succeeds alone. So I love that you know, the pastor of a church, a strong man of God, strong father, husband, leader in the community, mention something that a lot of guys will never mention, this idea of a counselor and a coach, that we actually need others in our life. We need community. We need others. And I think it's one of the things that, as a friend paying attention to your life for more than a decade, I can see where that serves you well. And I think it's how you and I both keep evolving and changing, is because we realize, like, dude, we don't have it all figured together. Now, don't get me wrong. There's been times, like I remember 2018, 19, like looking back, I could see it clearly where I was starting to push away some relationships. My
Right.
ego was getting, I was 32, 33.
I remember that.
CEO of an office of 120. Like my head started to get a little bit big, meaning that I started to think I was all that in a bag of chips and missing. Really, what's sad about that, looking back, is I began to push away relationships with some of the people that were most important to me. So I guess my whole point is, like, I don't think anybody succeeds alone. So if somebody's listening and thinks they're
Right.
self-made, I would say, bro, you wouldn't be here, number one, without God, without your parents, number one. And then number two, it's like, man, if somebody's listening and they feel like they're stuck, because I think about this, people sometimes are like, well, Chris, I'm pretty content in my work or in my relationship. Like, all is well.
Yeah.
Perfect. Like, number one, I would say, really, let's talk about that. You think your relationship's thriving. That's great. However, bro, you don't get to determine that. Let me talk to your wife. She's
That's
the
right.
one who
That's
decides the quality of the where you're at relationally. My point in bringing all that up is that, man, if somebody's out there and they feel like they're stuck, meaning that what you're doing is clearly no longer working. You may be missing a who. You recommended a book that I've read, I think twice now.
Who, Not How.
Who, Not How.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's okay if that area of your life is not working. Number one, acknowledge that. And maybe you're missing a who. Maybe I'm missing a marriage counselor.
Yeah.
Sheila, you connected me
Oh,
to
yeah.
Sheila. You
Yep.
connected me to some good who's,
Sheila's-
man.
One of the things about counseling is I realize there's so much I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, so in the Bible says there's wisdom in a multitude of counselors. So having a coach and a counselor and multiple coaches in different areas of life, like, that's biblical.
Yeah.
And I realize there's so much I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So what about if I can learn a little more and learn a little more
Yeah.
and continue to grow? And I've seen that with my health.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that with my spiritual health, my physical health, my emotional, my relational, my mental, like continuing to grow, continue to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're stuck, man, listen, don't be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't be afraid to reach out to a counselor, and they could probably even comment on your channel and we can get them plugged into some good counseling. There's good telecounseling around the world, but finding a good skilled counselor that can begin to work on this and your heart and some of the stuff that's happened. Maybe it's trauma that's happened to you,
Right.
but you can get healing from that.
Yeah.
And see, that's a growth mindset too. A growth mindset is, hey man, I've been hurt in the past, or I've experienced some things. I deal with first responders, being one myself, and I work with them, and I'm like, hey, you can get healing from the things that you've seen.
Man, that's good news.
But a fixed mindset says, no, that's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
It just sucks to suck,
Yeah.
So and then you almost give up hope.
Mm-hmm.
And one of
That's
the
a big deal.
verses that I wrote down is 2 Corinthians chapter 4 says, we do not lose heart. You don't lose hope.
Mm.
In fact, someone once said, hope is better than answers. Ooh,
Whoa, that's good.
I love that.
Dang.
Hope is better than answers.
I haven't heard that one before.
And having a counselor that'll help you, it's hope.
100%.
So having somebody that you can, if you've got to lean on them, or if you got to stand on their shoulders for a little while, it's okay.
Yeah,
That's hope.
that's so good.
And having a friend
Mm-hmm.
that can be a good counselor.
Yeah.
And you and I bounce stuff off of each other all the time.
Yeah.
There's times where I'll call you and go, hey, Chris, I need to meet up. I've got some stuff I'm processing.
Mm-hmm.
And you're able to ask some questions and we encourage one another.
Yeah.
That's hope.
Yeah.
Hopeless is like fixed mindset. Hopeless is it's just me by myself in
Yeah.
my house. Just me and the four walls and a phone.
Man, see, that's how the enemy takes people out,
That's
man.
right.
Where if I don't know if he has a strategy, but if
Isolation,
he
number one.
did,
He does have a
he
strategy.
gets people by themselves where they feel isolated, alone, like it's only them. No one else has struggled with that. I remember my wife and I were serving at a church down in Harrisonville,
Okay.
and we were the youth pastors about 2 years or so in.
Okay.
And the gentleman who was, his name is Guy Rolls. He was the lead worship guy. Incredible guy. He became a friend of mine before he relocated from Lee Summit to St. Louis. And I bought my first road bike as a result of hanging out with him because he was really into cycling.
Okay.
So we were cycling around Longview Lake, probably 2008 or 9. And I'll never forget this one summer day where we were right off of High Grove Road in Raytown. And I was kind of throwing some stuff out there about my past, just kind of seeing like what he would say. And I mentioned when I was a teenager that I struggled. I started watching pornography when I was about 12 years old. My buddies and I, we were in this rental property in Seattle, Washington, and behind us was like this alley and an overpass. And we found some like 1-800 number magazines, black and white newspaper back in the day in like a homeless man's shopping cart. And some really innocent kids,
Right.
12, 13 years
Yep.
old, we were just giggling, laughing. But looking back, it planted seeds in my heart, man. And then one thing led to another, So I say, looking back, I became addicted to pornography when I was 12, all the way up until my mid-20s when some things happened and started to turn around. Now, back to that day with Guy at Longview Lake cycling. So he's somebody I'm looking up to because he has he's an authoritative figure. He's an older man. And I said to him, I started sharing some of my story. And he just kind of turns over and looks at me. He's like, man, the same thing happened to me in college. And he started sharing his story and his struggle with pornography and when that came a part of his life. And I remember just thinking, you got to be kidding me. All these years, I felt isolated by myself, like I was some type of weird dude that had this weird issue that nobody else has wrestled with. And here it is, this pastor that became a friend of mine shares that he struggled with the exact same thing. And there was just so much freedom in realizing that. Now, he didn't claim to have any answers or all figured out. I don't even remember that part of the conversation, but there was just something magical on the inside of me that began to set me free when I heard another grown man that was doing incredible things with his life that I looked up to say that he understood and he wrestled with that back in the day as well.
Yeah.
Because, I shared this earlier today, that no temptation has seized you except what's common to man. God is faithful. He'll show you a way out. And one time I studied it, and it's like this imagery of being backed into a corner where you feel isolated by yourself, alone with no options. And that's not, the good news is, by the way, when it comes to a counselor, I would say a Christian counselor, not just any.
Somebody's going to use biblical
I don't want
principles.
somebody telling me I need to pray to a higher
Absolutely.
power or Mother Nature.
Yep.
I want to pray to the creator
Absolutely.
of nature.
And they're going to be giving you biblical advice.
100%. Principles that work 100% of the
That's
time
right.
because it was God's idea in the first place. So I would say, man, if there's somebody out there that just feels isolated by themselves, that they just feel like they're in a dark spot, like, number one, acknowledge it. Number two, pray. Maybe it's the first time somebody's praying. Pray and ask that you could find somebody to share it to. Heck, I'll be bold. Send me a personal message. I don't know who you are anyways. Share it with me if you want.
Yeah.
So yeah, my heart goes out to somebody that just feels alone and by themselves.
It's interesting because I read on Facebook the other day, a friend of mine put on Chat GPT, he put on there, if you were Satan, how would you destroy a nation?
Oh.
And listen to what it said. It said, number 1, undermine the truth. Number 2, break down families. Number 3, erode morality. Number 4, exploit division. Number 5, control education. Number 6, corrupt leadership. Number 7, destroy the church. And number 8, promote isolation.
Wow.
Number 9, encourage idolatry. And number 10, weaken resolve.
Man.
And I wanted to share that because I think that there are so many people that are stuck because they just need to find another person to share something with. And that's why I love a great counselor, because a great counselor can help you get unstuck.
Yeah, that's so true.
I think you need a great friend and you need a great counselor.
Absolutely. We all have blind spots.
Oh, yeah. 100%. I still have blind spots.
Sure.
And the longer people are friends with you, the less they see those blind spots. It's like if you go into your home, you might not see all of the nicks on the wall or the different things that are happening in your house. You go to put your house on the market and you have somebody brand new walk into the house, maybe interested in buying it.
Yeah.
They're going to start seeing through the eyes of a buyer,
right?
Not through the eyes of somebody that lives there.
It's a big difference.
And they're going to find things that are wrong that you probably haven't even seen for years because you've been there.
Right. And now January 16th,
right.
we're having Elevate, and it's going to be here at Life Quest Church in Belton.
That's right.
Yeah.
It is.
And
right
so
here.
the goal would be
right here on this stage.
Exactly. It's a win, man. Thank you for allowing us to utilize your space, by the way.
Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So what is it that when somebody purchases a ticket and they invest in themselves to be here, what is it that you hope to leave in them that will help them throughout 2025? So one thing.
I want to take them on a journey of how they can get unlocked mentally from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. And they might have a fixed mindset in some areas, like you said, blind spots. And if they can get unleashed in those areas, 2025 promises to be the best year ever.
Man, that's so good.
But if they don't, 2025 promises to be the same replay as 2024.
Man.
At the same replay as 2023.
Like Groundhog Day.
That's right. And so I want to encourage people to be here because I know some of the speakers that you have lined up. Listen, they need to be here. Yeah. Because I just believe that taking a half day from what are the times? From 10 to...
It's from 10 to 1.
10 to 1.
10 to 1.
10 to 1 that day, investing in you and your team.
Yeah.
Hands down. It'd be one of the best things. And then if you and your team could get away and process what you learned,
100%.
it's going to be awesome.
Absolutely. Especially, I love that it's going to be first quarter right into the new year, 2025. One of the things that's been so impactful in my life is relationships. Your friendship and the relationships of other people. David Higginbotham, he's going to be one of our keynote speakers, talking about how to avoid, I'm going to put it in my own words, like how to avoid a relational train wreck, because usually who comes to our events is going to be entrepreneurs, people that are business owners or interested in being a business owner. So high achievers. And yet what I love about David is he's going to remind everybody, don't build your business at the expense of your loved ones. Love your loved ones well and be intentional, and then crush business as well. We don't have to have a thriving business or thriving relationships in our household. We could actually have both.
That's right. And then Isaac is going to be here.
Isaac,
Oh, I'm excited about hearing
Same,
him.
yeah. He's a stud. He has a powerful story.
And then Houston.
Yes, that's
Houston
correct.
will be
Yeah.
sharing,
So the reason, I'll peel back a layer of why having this in-person conference is important to me is because I look at my life, and T.D. Jakes said this, that if you see a turtle on a fence post, you know he didn't get there by themselves. And so one of the things I discovered in writing my book, Path to Purpose, is that I believe where I'm at where I'm at as a result of the people that God has sent in my life to help me along the way. Meaning I didn't get here by myself. Not that I'm at some type of peak of the mountain,
No, I don't
Jeff
think
Bezos,
you scratched the surface yet.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just getting warmed up, man.
That's right.
The point is I'm not where I used to be. And I look at the one common denominator, and it's Jesus has sent people in my life to help me get to where I want to go. I desire to create a community where people can come together. And I'm hoping that it's a place, I trust that it's a place where grown men share their phone numbers with other grown men. That sounds crazy. And yet I'll tell you what, one of the most powerful things I've done is take the initiative to say, hey, Chris, I've enjoyed meeting you at Starbucks. What's your phone number? I'm going to shoot you a text, coffee or lunch, my treat. I'm hoping and trusting that our in-person event helps people establish relationships
Yes.
that last decade after decade. Because that's where the magic happens, man.
I totally agree. And here's the deal. You can go and listen to a YouTube. You can do that.
Sure.
Again, you're doing it by yourself. When you're in a room with other people, you're
Yeah.
sitting at a table, you're getting to talk to other people. All of a sudden you find out other people have struggles that you have.
Yeah.
And voila, the magic is not even in the speakers. The magic is in getting the community and that stuff happening.
Exactly.
And then that's when things happen. You
Yeah.
start taking principles and you start holding each other accountable, and people start getting together like you and I get together on a regular basis.
Right.
Other people start getting together and they hold each other accountable,
Mm-hmm.
and things happen.
Exactly.
And pretty soon their 2025 now becomes a banner year,
Yeah.
a record breaking year,
Right.
because now they're doing life differently.
Yeah. That's huge.
I would say with mindset, like, you've got to start doing things differently. If you do
Mhm.
what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always gotten. So let us help you
Mhm.
get unstuck.
That's good.
And here's what I know. If somebody's listening right now to this channel, they have a growth mindset, or they desire a growth mindset.
Mm-hmm.
You might not have it yet. You might be desiring it because you're listening, you're trying to learn.
Mhm.
So let us help you get unlocked. Let us help you go from being a fixed mindset to a growth mindset.
Man, that's powerful. I would say your mindset is going to make or break you for 2025.
Yeah.
So why not choose in advance to have a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset? Fixed mindset, I'm closed off to opportunities. I'm closed off to God's potential for my life. I'm closed off relationally to others, mostly because I think I'm right and I know it all. So what do I need your input for? I don't value you.
That's right.
I don't value your input. Leave me alone. Leave me be. I got it figured out. No, an open mindset means I'm open to possibilities. I'm open to what God's doing in my life. I'm opening to hearing the perspective of other people. And I'm curious. I'm coming from curiosity, not judgment. I believe that type of thinking is more likely to cause one to have success that they desire in every area,
right.
whether it's relationships, in their business, in their faith. I believe that type of attitude and approach to life will drastically help someone achieve what they desire to achieve in 2025.
Can you think of a time real quickly? 'Cause I know this is your podcast, so you're asking me questions.
you're
but
good,
let me
man.
ask you a question. Can you think of a time where you had a fixed mindset, and then how did you overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, I think clearly about the loop with the gentleman named Guy. Going back to that was my peak level of fitness. So other than that story, a time that I had a fixed mindset, Chris, I would say that, I really struggled coming into real estate for a few reasons. Number one, looking back, I could see it clearly now that really what I was doing, I was bringing an employee mindset into being self-employed, meaning that I thought, like, okay, I remember I worked at Beautiful Savior right out of high school.
Okay.
And I wanted more money. So what do you think I did? I cranked out more hours.
That's right.
So instead of working 8 hours, I worked 16 hours. And I did that for 2 or 3 weeks in a row to move the needle financially. And yet I brought that approach into real estate, meaning, okay, well, I just need to go work 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. Am I glad I did that? Yeah, I am, because I realized if I were to just make one change, I wouldn't want to change anything. So I'm not going to go back and say I would undo that, because there are some lessons I learned there. But the sad thing is that when my kids were kids, I had the mindset that I had to work 7 days a week. I had to hustle and grind to go out and provide for them. I guess I'm glad I did, because now I could laugh about it, kind of, sort of. And yet, one of the ways I had a fixed mindset, I used to think that in order to make more money, I had to work harder. Well, that could work. Working harder can be the solution if effort is the challenge.
Right.
But if I'm working harder at things that are honestly not working, it would be stupid to just go do more of those things.
Yes.
So now I believe that it's actually easier to make a lot of money in a short period of time. It's easier to do that than it is to make a lot of money.
Right.
I mean, make a little bit of money over a long period of time. I have a W-2 from like 2008 or no, 2005 or 6. And I think the yearly income was like 27,000 and some change. I've had so many months where I've made well beyond that, since
that's right.
then. But I remember, like, back then I was working commercial retaining walls, lifting blocks that were like 96 pounds, sun up to sundown, doing construction type of work. I would come home dog tired. and I was barely making any money. And now, thanks to business, I'm actually able to figure out how to bring solutions to people where they compensate me for solving bigger problems for them.
Yeah.
So
But it's a different mindset.
It's actually easier to make more money with little effort. It's crazy. So that was a limiting belief.
Yeah. You went from a fixed mindset
Yeah,
to a growth mindset.
sure.
The way you looked at things. And if you'd have been stubborn, nope, that's just the way it is.
Right.
Then you might still be lifting walls.
Yeah. And in order to keep evolving and changing, I strategically place people in my life, meaning I go to YouTube and I learn from them or hire
That's
them
right.
as a coach, because there's a temptation. I think one of the things that is dangerous is if I grow comfortable or complacent, where it's like, man, I'm good. My family, we got enough to get by. We're doing pretty good.
Yep.
We give away a little bit of our time, a little bit of money. Like, we're doing pretty good. Like, stick in cruise control. We're good from here. And that I might do that for a minute, but that's never going to set well long-term for me. And so one of the ways that I continue to increase my, I guess, just awareness and challenge myself is by inserting great people in my life. Because one of the mentors that I have right now, his name is Myron Golden. Never met him in person. He's out of Tampa, Florida, but he's my go-to all this year, where I've been watching him more than anybody else on YouTube. And he talks about making $1 million or multiple $1 million per day. Whew, man, that still stretches me and caused me to think, how's that even possible? So I guess like staying hungry or not being complacent is important to me, man, because I want to keep changing. I want to keep learning. I don't want to get stagnant, man.
I would say that if somebody stayed in that mindset that you were talking about, where they're like, hey, I'm content with just making the bare minimum, like the person I was telling you, like they were content with just staying in their job and just making the bare minimum. They don't want to really move up. They don't want to deal with management stuff or whatever. I would say that is a fixed mindset,
man.
And it's going to keep you. And again, it's going to bleed over into every area of your life.
It's actually selfish.
Yeah, it is.
Because who's it serving? It's serving me.
It's
in my
serving
comfort.
you, but it's actually hurting you.
100%.
You think it's serving you, but it's hurting you.
Yeah.
And it's hurting your family, and it's hurting your kids' kids.
Right.
Because you've got so much more. If you have so much more that God created you for, it goes back to your Path to Purpose, your book. If you've not read his book, you need to get the Path to Purpose book, because you talk about the purpose of like why we are alive. Like if everybody is desiring, what is my purpose in life? I don't know my purpose in life. Once you dial into your purpose in life,
man,
and if you knew that God could have done so much more if you would have just unlocked your mindset.
Yeah, that's good, Chris.
So
I appreciate you sharing that.
Man, I'm excited. I'm excited about Elevate 25 too.
Same.
So
thank you, man.
I really appreciate it, man. I love
you. So any final words?
I mean, I would just go back and listen to this. This has just been like, there's so much more we could talk about, but you got to start with the limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
Take the lies, replace them with the truth.
That's good.
Develop a declaration, get into a counselor, and then maybe we can come back to another podcast and continue to.
There we go, part 2. So I'm going to drop a link of your book, Quantum Leap, in the description to make it easy for people to access. And how can they find you on social media? Do you have a preference?
Just, they can go to Pastor Chris Pinion on Facebook or Chris Pinion and follow me. Perfect. Or on Instagram.
Yeah. And if they're in the Kansas City area and they're looking for a home church or a place to check out.
Check out lifequest.church. Yeah.
There we go.
Lifequest.church.
Very good. Well, I appreciate
videos are on there too.
Thanks, man.